What is up, fellow nerds, and welcome back to the Dapper Snapper Gaming channel, and welcome back to How Do I Want to Do This? This is our series where we take a look at all playable options available to players in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, then we rank them on a scale of 1 to 10 and either build them or fix them depending on how they rank. Now today we finish up our talks on the Circle of the Land Druid. This is the most druid of all of the druids, being connected to nature and drawing all of your power from it depending on where you're from or where you happen to be, or just being able to remember a place you visited once. It's very, very cool. Definitely has received a glow up since the 2014 days, and I'm excited to go ahead and put that into practice. Before we do that, make sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe if you haven't already, share the video with your friends, and click the bell so you're notified when new videos are uploaded. So the Land Druid is really fun, right? It used to be pretty rough. I mean, it's always been fine, I guess. It's always been middle of the road. I talked about it back in 2014. We, of course, redid it, and I talked about what changed and all the good things that happened with it. That is up in the iCard above right there from my earlier video this week. But basically, it's received a lot of quality of life, just nice things that really help the subclass just function a little bit better. Just some nice straight buffs here and there, some wording that makes a little bit more sense. Overall, I'm pretty happy with where this subclass is. But of course, today we are here to build with it, and so that is what we are going to do right now. Let's go ahead and kick off with our race/species, whichever one you want to call it, and we're going to go with a weird one today. I normally have been kicking back and forth between a few of them. I've done a ton of videos with the Aasimar, with the Goliath, and then a couple with the human. I actually would not recommend the Aasimar here at all. It's not on my list here. It's not in my honorable mentions, nothing like that, which is strange, but yeah, it's actually not on my list at all for this, and we'll talk about what is on my honorable mention list at the very end. But we're kicking this off with the Tiefling. The Tiefling is a bit of a weird choice, but honestly, I like it here. We get some extra spell casting, which is always going to be a good thing, and that's really what I was looking for, was one of the races that gives us additional spells that we can cast, which is really good. We're going to be solely focused on casting tons and tons and tons of spells, so why not get some more options, right? That's where this comes in. Now, of course, we get Dark Vision with this, and we get our Fiendish Legacy as of 2024. If you're using an old version, then this will look a little bit different, but at least for the 2024 version, this is what we're using. For Fiendish Legacy, you get to choose amongst 3 options, and my top option here is going to actually be the Chthonic. Now, the other 2 do actually make sense and have a place. However, there is a little bit of rub with those in the options that we have for our different circles. There is either a spell in common or straight up a possible damage resistance that is in common, and so part of it ends up becoming redundant that way. This makes it to where it's not redundant. So if you want to use one of the other options, perfectly viable, but honestly, I like the Ray of Enfeeblement option here, so I'm good with that. Chill Touch is a decent cantrip, so can't really go wrong there. False Life is fine. Situationally, it's very good. So it just depends on what you're dealing with, but overall, I think this is a good option. And we also, of course, get Otherworldly Presence, which just gives us Thaumaturgy for free. Really good. Really, really good stuff. I'm really okay with the Tiefling, albeit we're not doing anything like the Winged Tiefling or anything like that. If you're allowed to do that, by all means, consider it. But I really like the extra spells that we can cast for this one. For stats, of course, we're doing standard point buy. Of course, if you're using a different way of doing stats, make sure to just adjust these for your table. But we are going to be just putting 3/15 in Dex, Constitution, and Wisdom, throwing the rest with 8s. That's pretty self-explanatory, pretty simple. I don't think there's any reason to really make it complicated. Now, while I would love to put a +1 in my Constitution, unfortunately the background that I'm taking does not allow that. If you can make a custom background at your table, by all means do that and then go with Constitution, but instead we're going with the +1 in Dexterity and +2 in Wisdom, and we'll fix it a little bit later on, but that's what we have to go to, because for our background, we are going with the Wayfarer. Now, you can do Farmer instead, and Farmer gives you the tough feat, which is not bad at all. However, for me, I would rather pack Lucky and pack insight, stealth, thieves tools, things like that. I think that makes sense for what it is we're trying to do with this build, so that is what we're going to do there. And of course, the Wayfarer boosts Dex, Wisdom, and Charisma. So yeah, no Constitution there, unfortunately. For equipment, we will grab some light armor. We no longer get medium armor proficiency as a Druid, unfortunate. And then you can grab either a club or a quarterstaff here. I like a club just because it's one-handed, and then the quarterstaff is also an option. Of course, being versatile, you can do either way on that. Of course, if you decide to use this, our primary focus is going to be casting spells. It's not going to be using this. It's just nice to have just in case if we need to do some shillelagh shenanigans. We have the option, but it is by far not our primary way of doing things on this build. So let's start taking some levels at Druid 1. Yes, we're starting Druid, and we're going to be a Druid the whole way through. I think it just makes sense to go really hard on this type of a build. Of course, there are plenty of other options, and I'll talk about it in the honorable mentions as far as some other options for multi-classing. There, of course, is always going to be a strong case for going with Cleric, but we'll talk about that when we get to the very end, and we'll talk about some other ways that you can build this. The thing about this is that you can go a lot of different directions because of all the different circles. And so while I'm only giving you one example of a build today, there are tons of ways you can do this because of all the features that you get with each of the different circles. So just because I do this does not mean this is the way to do a Circle of the Land Druid. There are 4 different circles just within this subclass, so there's a lot of options. And so if you'd like to see a video of doing other circle type of builds in the future, let me know down in the comments below. For Druid 1, we of course get our spell casting. We'll come back to that in a second. We get Druidic, which is cool. Of course, this got buffed a little bit, giving us Speak with Animals now, which is great. Definitely a very Druid thing for us to have. And we also get Primal Order. Of course, this is kind of stealing what the Cleric also has gotten, and so we get the option between Magician and Warden. I'm gonna go with Magician just because, again, we are focusing on our spells and not so much on the melee and the getting up in the fight. So I don't really care about the medium armor as much. I don't really care about the martial weapons at all, and so I don't really need it, so I'm not really worrying about that. For our cantrips, of course, in the spellcasting, you get a lot of them here. So Guidance, Shillelagh, Thorn Whip, Starry Wisp, even Elementalism. Elementalism is the last one on my list for a reason, because it does functionally the same thing as Thaumaturgy, although it does it in different ways. And so yeah, Elementalism was just kind of is a new cantrip to kind of expand on the thaumaturgies and prestidigitations and that kind of thing, just giving it more of an elemental feel. So yeah, it's just one of those kind of do some basic little things type of cantrips. So if you want to pack it, great. If not, no big deal. For first level spells, of course, Cure Wounds, Fairy Fire, Healing Word are going to be the top 3. There, of course, are some other options as well, and we will get one additional option once we get to level 3, but we will come back to that depending on your circle. You will also, of course, get one more cantrip depending on your circle. So don't think we're even done with that. It's just going to be a couple of levels ahead. Druid 2, we get Wild Shape and Wild Companion. Of course, I had some pretty strong things to say about Wild Shape when I covered it in our general Druid guide, which I'll put up in the iCard above right there for you. A lot of people did not agree with my take, and that's totally fine. I am very used to the tanking Druid kind of thing, although my most recent Druid was a Wildfire Druid, actually, and so I exclusively used my fiery ally there. I didn't even use it for the main purpose that it's supposed to be used for. But either way, I get the idea of not being able to be knocked out of Wild Shape just because you get hit as a small creature. That's certainly a nice buff there. But in pretty much every other way, it's a nerf. For balancing, it makes a lot of sense, and so I understand it. I just, I like raising power rather than lowering. I would rather raise everything up to someone's level rather than lower one person down. That's just me, but that's just how I tend to balance things. We also get Wild Companion here, which is of course ported over from the Tasha's book, and it's nice. It gives us access to a familiar, which is great. Familiars are always going to be super helpful. This is definitely a feature I would use as much as possible. It's very good. Druid 3, of course, we get our subclass, and so we're going to get a couple of things. We get Land's Aid starting out, which is not terrible. It's a nice little way of dealing a little bit of damage and that kind of thing. I'm not against it. I think it's cool. Is it the best thing out there? No, but would I use it? Yeah, I would. I actually would. I don't know that the scaling is the best, but at least for right now, it's not a bad option. It's not a bad option at all. So yeah, definitely use that. And then this is also where we pick our circle. And this is kind of the pivotal moment, right? And so I'm going to give you a few options here, because the thing is, you're not locked in anymore to what you can or can't take. You now can take whatever you want, and then if you don't like it, tomorrow you can do a new one, right? That's what makes this so much more flexible and what gives this the real edge that it needs. Yes, there's now 4 instead of 8 options, but all the options are viable, and you can swap amongst them depending on what you are doing. And of course, each of them get additional benefits as you continue to level. So there's really a lot to like here. I really don't have a whole lot to complain about. Now, to me, it really depends on the situation you're in, and each of them, of course, serve kind of a different role, right? You've got your blaster in Arid, you've got a couple that are more like utility / controller. You've really got a good mix here. For me, I think the tropical is probably going to be my go-to for this build specifically, although I can definitely see an option going for the polar option. I think that one makes a lot of sense as well. On this build, Arid doesn't make as much sense, but definitely could work. And then for me, Temperate is probably the weakest of the options, but there's still some use there. You still get Misty Step with that, which is still good, right? So to me, I mean, all of them are useful. I would use all 4 of them in the course of my campaign. And so honestly, this is going to be a day-by-day thing. I'm not going to say take one and never change. I think that's the worst way you could possibly play this. I think change it every other day. I mean, change it every day if you need to. Use the feature. Use the feature, swap the spells, do it. I think that's what it's there for. Do it. So I'm going to assume tropical for the most part, but again, switch them out day by day. Do what you want to do with it. It definitely will help you out a lot. So of course at this level we also get 2nd level spells. You're going to get 3 additional spells as well, a cantrip 1st and 2nd level spell depending on what circle that you chose. So that's whatever circle you chose, there's a list there, and so you'll get those. In addition, you get things like Aid, Hold Person, Moonbeam, which I want to talk about Moonbeam for a second. And of course, the classic Spike Growth. Moonbeam has been changed slightly, and it's good. It's really good. Of course, it's still very similar to what it was. However, some of the wording has changed in how things react to it when they are put in its space or it is moved into their space. And I wanted to mention that because basically, the way that the old wording worked, and it's kind of indicative to the way that 2014 just worked in general, of when a creature entered the space for the first time or ended its turn there, right, was the old way of saying things. Basically now, if you just move the Moonbeam through the space, that creature has to make the save and then possibly takes the damage. That's a great buff. That's a great buff. That's why I would take this every time. Before, I was kind of on Moonbeam. I wasn't always going to be the one that says, you need to take this is the best spell, whatever. I really wasn't feeling that way. I never was saying that this was the best spell on the Druid list. I know some people were that way. I never felt that way. And it is distinctly different from something like Cloud of Daggers, which I have recommended in the past. Cloud of Daggers specifically teleports from one space to another now with the new rules. This moves. Therefore, you can catch collateral on the way. So that's really cool. Definitely a really interesting distinction, and definitely makes this a lot better than it was before. Really good. Druid 4, we of course get our first general feat, and everybody knows where we're going. It's Warcaster, right? we want to make sure that Moonbeam sticks around for as long as possible, and this is going to be the way to do it. It also, of course, is going to boost our Wisdom up to an 18, which is really nice. Of course, advantage on those saving throws to maintain concentration is a huge plus, and of course, if you were able to pick up something like True Strike, of course, and we'll talk about things like that in the honorable mentions. If we were to get something like True Strike, you could use that in place of an opportunity attack, so that's an interesting idea. But we don't actually have a cantrip that works well there. The best thing we would have is Thorn Whip, I guess, technically, but still not too bad, there. We're here mostly for maintaining concentration. Druid 5, we get Wild Resurgence, which is kind of our meta magic-ish feature. That's kind of similar to what this works with. You basically get to expend a spell slot to regain Wild Shape, or you can do it the other way around. Now, of course, expending spell slots to get Wild Shape, you can do as much as you want. If you want to do it the other way around, you're limited to once per day. So there is a limit there, but I probably would do the once per day just because I don't know how often I'm using Wild Shape for the most part. I'm probably casting spells a lot more in my case. We also get 3rd level spells, and my top 2, Aura Vitality, Revivify, and even then, if your Cleric has Revivify covered, you may or may not want it. It's always nice to have a backup if the Cleric goes down. That way you can grab the jewels out of the Cleric's pocket and cast the spell and then go from there. So it's not bad, but I would say that we are probably not going to be the main focused person to be taking that Revivify. At Druid 6, we get Natural Recovery. Of course, this used to be our 3rd level feature, but now it is level 6. It still gives you the same thing before. When you take a rest, you get to regain some spell slots. But in addition to that, we can now cast one of our leveled spells on the circle list for free once per day. Really good. Really good. Like I've said, all of these spell lists are pretty dang good. I wouldn't say any of them are game breaking or insane, but they're still all very usable. And this of course means a fireball on the Arid one once per day for free. Really fun. Really fun. And so I like that a lot. Really good. At Druid 7, we get Elemental Fury, which is basically just the same thing as Blessed Strikes on the Cleric. And so we either get the Potent Spellcasting or, well, it doesn't matter. We're taking Potent Spellcasting, right? There's no reason for us to go with the other option. Potent Spellcasting all day long. And I'm probably going to take that on almost every Druid, if not all of them not named Moon Druid. So that's just kind of part of it. I think that Potent Spellcasting is just going to be a lot more useful. Being able to do extra damage with our cantrips, really good stuff. We of course get 4th level spells here as well. Charm Monster, Wall of Fire are both going to be top options there. You can also do Fount of Moonlight, which is interesting. I wouldn't say that it's the most busted spell in this context, although it is very good. I do like this spell a lot. I think that it comes with a lot of really good stuff, especially being able to blind somebody if they hit you. I think that's cool. Definitely a really awesome option there. At Druid 8, we of course get our next general feat, and we're going to go ahead and shore up that odd number constitution with Resilience. So now we get the not only advantage, but we also get proficiency on those constitution saving throws, and this of course raises our constitution to a 16 as well. Very good. Druid 9, no features, but we do get 5th level spells. My top option is always going to be Greater Restoration. It's just the best one. It's the best 5th level spell for a Druid, in my opinion, at least on the general list. So yeah, might as well go with that. Druid 10, we get Nature's Ward, and of course now we get a resistance to a certain type of damage depending on the circle. Now, of course, we have been looking at Tropical, which gets arguably the worst resistance of all of them, being poison, especially here at level 10. So that's a bit of a bummer there. Of course, fire would be nice, but the issue with fire is that we get a bunch of fire spells with Arid, and we get the resistance to the damage. But at the same time, if we are trying to resist the fire damage, a lot of times what we are attacking also doesn't really care about taking fire damage. So that's the only thing, is it's kind of a double-edged sword there, of where you may end up being useful on one side but not so much on the other. So just be careful with that. To me, having the defensive option far outweighs the bad, just because we get a wide variety of spells here, and so I'm okay with it. If we can't fireball that one time, but it keeps us from dying to, you know, a breath weapon from a dragon, yeah, it's worth it. It's totally worth it. So yeah, that's where I'm at on that. Druid 11, no features, but we do get 6 level spells. Heal is going to be my top option. Wall of Thorns is not too bad. I typically prefer Wall of Fire over Wall of Thorns. That's just a personal preference. Druid 12, we get another ASI or feat. I'm going with the ASI. Gonna go and boost our wisdom there to 20. It just makes the most sense there. Druid 13, no features, but we do get 7th level spells. My top option is going to be Firestorm. There are a couple other options that are fine. Not necessarily worth a 7th level spell slot, but still not too bad of options there. Druid 14, we get Nature's Sanctuary, which is a very interesting feature. I don't know that it's necessarily busted or super strong, but being able to share your resistance with your allies is not terrible, and getting some cover is not terrible. And the ability to move it around so far is really nice, giving you some versatility there. How much is it helpful if we are moving this little pocket of resistance around? If you get fireballed, I guess it's nice, but you all were bunched up anyway if that happened. So I don't know. It's kind of good and bad. This is probably going to only really work on one person at a time, because otherwise you're asking to get AoE'd, but it is what it is on that. Druid 15, we get our improved Elemental Fury. And of course, because we went with Potent Spellcasting several levels ago, our Druid cantrips that have a range of 10 feet or more now get an additional 300-foot range. Not bad. Not bad. Is it busted? No, but it's still pretty good, so I'm not against it. Again, this is kind of a similar thing to what the cleric does as well. For 8th level spells here, Animal Shapes and Befuddlement are going to be my top options. Befuddlement is gross. I don't know how many of y'all have looked at Befuddlement, but it is a gross spell. Intelligence saving throw, and basically you just break their mind. They can't take the magic action anymore, which is insane. You do this to a charisma-based or wisdom-based caster, the fight is over. It's over. That's the whole fight. I mean, that's disgusting. So it's very strong, definitely worth using. I really like that spell a lot, really good. Druid 16, of course, comes with our final feat, and I'm going to go with the ASI option. You can either go with Dexterity or Constitution. Constitution is probably going to be my top option there, but Dexterity, of course, helps with AC. It, of course, helps with our ability to go a little bit earlier in initiative, so there's definitely reasons to take either one, but I just pick your favorite on that. Druid 17, no features, but we do get 9th level spells. Shape Change and True Resurrection make the most sense for something like this. I don't think I would go with anything else on that list there. Druid 18, Beast Spells is cool. I don't know how much we will be using this, of being able to cast our spells while in our wild shape. Again, it's fine. It's fine. I'm not jumping up for joy with it just because of wild shape being what it is, but still not too bad. You could be a sneaky little mouse and then cast Fireball as a sneaky little mouse. I don't know, could be cool. Druid 19, we get, of course, our epic boon, and you could choose whatever one you want, really. Spell Recall is probably going to be my top one for a spellcaster, but of course there are a couple others that make sense here. And finally, Druid 20, we get Arch Druid. Again, is anybody making it to level 20? Probably not, but I still have been kind of disappointed with this feature. So yeah, you get back one use of Wild Shape whenever you roll initiative. You can now convert your Wild Shapes to spell slots at a 2x multiplier, which is good. And then of course you age slower, which they borrowed from level 18 in the previous version. So that is your build for today. Let me know what you think down below. The Druid is fun. It really is. It's not that the Druid is bad. It's not that I'm saying that I don't want to play it. It's still fun. I just wish that Wild Shape was handled differently, but that's just me. The Land Druid, though, very, very good. I'm all about it. I think that the changes here have only done it good, and it's great. It's definitely a lot more fun now than what it was before. At least for me. I had a player who played a Land Druid when I ran Curse of Strahd a couple of years ago, and she really wasn't about it. It just felt a little restrictive and weird, and all these other people are getting these versatile options, being able to do all these things, and she's locked in at a decision that she made back at level 3. Doesn't always feel great. So definitely nice to have these versatile options. Very, very cool there. For our honorable mentions, let's go ahead and talk about those. And my second option for species / race, whatever, is going to be the elf. The elf makes a lot of sense here. Of course, the elf makes sense in almost any situation, but still, here is really good, especially for that extra cantrip. And so you can, of course, go and grab things like True Strike here with the racial or species. So that makes a lot of sense to be able to grab that with this instead of having to necessarily multi-class or something like that. And in the same vein, human, right? Human allows us to grab a second background, and this would also allow us to do basically the same thing in grabbing that True Strike. If you're wanting to do more shillelagh shenanigans, that can give you the ability to do that. For other feat options, Fey Touched is probably going to always be my top option for Druid if you don't actually get it on the build. Fey Touched is just so good. I had it on my Druid. It's really strong. Being able to have Misty Step. The only thing about it is, though, you gain Misty Step here, but you can also get Misty Step on the temperate list, so you don't necessarily even have to have it. And that's why I didn't include it here, is because I can get Misty Step on the temperate list. Why do I need to take Fey Touched? Feels like a waste if I can just switch into that. But yeah, that's an option as well. Elemental Adept is a final option. Of course, you can take either cold or fire depending on what you want to do on that. It's still not a great feat. It's still not a great feat. Only turning 1s into 2s is still not great. I wish that it was just a reroll, but what are you gonna do? It is what it is, I guess. But getting around resistance is not a bad thing, so definitely an option to consider there. And finally, the two options for possible multi-classing, you know what they're gonna be: Cleric and Ranger. The two wisdom-based ones there, they make the most sense. Cleric is always going to be your top option here for its focus in the spell casting. Of course, you can get armor with that if you need to. You, of course, get other spell options, which is good. And consider this: the Arid Druid with the Light Cleric. Gross. Absolutely gross. And that is an option that we could explore if you all wanted to do that in the future. And of course, the Ranger is really good too. If you wanted to focus a little bit more on weapons and doing shillelagh kind of things, the Ranger absolutely can help us with that, of course, with weapon masteries. And there's a lot of really good synergy in there that we could definitely make the most of. So that is our build for today. Let me know what you think down below. Next week, of course, we're going back to one of the most popular druids that has ever existed, and that is the Moon Druid. It has received pretty significant changes similar to the Land Druid, so I am excited to jump into that with you. And until next time, stay safe out there, stay healthy. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.